Hello there and welcome to Star Wars Lore. Today's video is on the Mk1 and the Mk2 Assault Frigates. Now, during the early stages of the Galactic Civil War, the Rebel Alliance managed to get their hands on some of these old Dreadnought class starships, but they very quickly realized that its crew requirement of 16,000 actually made it very hard to be able to use them, as they just simply didn't have the manpower to spare. However, they were in desperate need of warships, so they decided to equip the ships with lots of droids and automated systems, which brought the crew requirement down to about 5,000, thus making it a lot easier for the rebels to use them. They then began to heavily modify the dreadnoughts by firstly trying to get better speed and efficiency without impacting their original weapon systems. They then pulled off some of their hull plating, which left most of the internal structure exposed to space, and a dorsal and ventral fin were then added to provide extra maneuverability. They removed all the internal docking capacity that the dreadnought had, and instead fitted them with 20 umbilical docking fixtures, like the ones on the Nebulon B frigate that were used by the Falcon at the end of Empire Strikes Back. And unlike the ones on the Nebulon B, however, these docking points were unable to carry ships through hyperspace. And if that wasn't enough, they also increased the number of weapons that the original dreadnought had. The ship still had its 20 quad laser cannons, but instead of its 10 turbo lasers and 10 laser cannons that originally came on the dreadnought, they were increased to both 15 turbo lasers and 15 laser cannons. Now, while this did make the ship considerably more powerful, the downside is that its increased power drain on the main power system resulted in the turbo lasers having both their range and rate of fire reduced. In the process of making all these modifications, they kind of removed a lot of hull plating, making it less durable than before as well. But they at least did try to compensate for this by giving it some stronger shields. And after all these modifications were done, what they were left with was a 700 meter long ship that no longer looked anything like a Dreadnought class starship. It now looked like a whole new class of starship on its own, so it was renamed from the Dreadnought to the Assault Frigate. Now, it's also worth pointing out that whilst most Assault Frigates generally had one fin on the front, there were some variants that were made that had two fins on the front that kind of resembled an upside down V, kinda like the Nebulon B2 frigate. Now, these new assault frigates first saw combat around the time of the assault on Kashyyyk in 1 BBY, and during the early stages of the Galactic Civil War, and went on to serve as a mainstay of the New Republic defense fleet in the years following the Battle of Endor. Now, it wasn't actually until at some point towards the end of the Galactic Civil War that someone actually decided to try and improve upon the design of the assault frigate and make a new and improved version, the Mk2. And this was done by a small splinter group who sympathised with the rebels, who also happened to work inside the large shipbuilding company Rendili Stardrive. They started by moving away from using the Dreadnought as a base model and instead came up with a more original design. And with this new design, they decided to arm it with 15 laser cannons and 15 turbo lasers, just like the Mk1. But whereas the Mk1 had 20 quad laser cannons, the Mk2 was instead given 15 quad turbo lasers, thus giving it a much more powerful punch. Unlike the Mk1, the Mk2 could also handle the extra drain on its systems. And the Mk2 was also made to be more durable, and was even given some powerful Mon Calamari shields for an even better defense. However, Rendili Stardrive soon discovered the splinter cell within their own company and promptly brought an end to the Mk2 project. And doing so didn't bring about the end of the Mk2, as a handful were built for the rebels, but it did slow any further production of the ship down to a trickle, to the point where the rebels gave up on getting their hands on any more and just stuck with the Mk1s. Now, the Assault Frigate as a whole went on to be considered a very effective combat warship during the Galactic Civil War, and since this ship is also unique to the Rebellion and New Republic, it became a somewhat ironic reversal of fortune when the Empire decided to attempt to steal some for themselves. But now I want to know what you guys think of these rebel-made assault frigates. Personally, I'm a fan of the Mk2 ever since I first saw it in the Star Wars Empire War video game, but I look forward to hearing your thoughts on these warships in the comments section down below. So thanks for watching, take care, and may the Force be with you.